But we'll kick off. So first of all, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional land on which we're meeting, and I think we're all meeting on Wadawurrung land, and of course the Wadawurrung people are part of the Kulin Nation, and we pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. I was just saying to a few people, I was just in a national Zoom meeting, and there was like 120 people, and all the presenters were actually just talking about the land on which they were sitting on, and it was actually really beautiful to hear all the different nations and people referring to their traditional people. I thought that was really nice. So to kick off today's program, we've got another 3 awesome speakers and long-term community partners of the organisation. I do have an apology. So Jake from Drysdale Food was supposed to join us, and he looks after a food program down in Drysdale that services the Ballerine. And unfortunately, he's been called away for some emergency, some medical appointments today. So unfortunately, we won't be able to hear from Jake. So we have Chris from the Paddock. So, and Chris has actually worked out how to change his name, so well done. So the Paddock, Chris will talk about what he does in a moment, but for those that don't know, the Paddock is actually part of Encompass Community Services. So most of you will probably have heard of Encompass, quite a large organisation, community organisation in Geelong, and do some wonderful work. And we've been a long-term partner of those, and particularly the Paddock. The Paddock is one of our favourite places to actually physically go. So our team actually love going and hanging out at the Paddock. And we were just saying it's a bit sad that we haven't been able to get out there this year. So we also have Anita Belousov. So Anita she'll explain to you what she does. She is from the Ballerine Living and Learning Centre, which is located at the Whittington Neighbourhood House. So, and a wonderful organisation that have been experiencing some interesting times at the moment. This has really affected your operations. So our panel can keep their microphones off mute. That's absolutely fine. We keep these pretty casual. And we have Helen Bolton, who is the CEO of the Sexual Assault and Family Violence Centre. So another wonderful organisation here in Geelong, also operates in the Wimmera, and Helen will also explain to you sort of what's been going under this current context as well. Some horrible, when Helen's team get really busy, that means something terrible is going on in our community. And I do just need to acknowledge, not that it's a conflict, but I do actually serve on the board of the Sexual Assault Family Violence Centre. So of course it's one of my favourites, but that doesn't affect anything. And I am not allowed to have any funding conversations. So to get us started, I might start with you, Chris. Tell us a little bit about what the Paddock does, and I guess who the program is helping, and kind of why you exist.
The Paddock's a 7-acre farm in Leopold, and it's mainly aimed at people with disabilities or people with mental health barriers. We've been around for 15 years, and we use gardening, I suppose, horticultural therapy, and capacity building, work skills, things like that. We're NDIS funded, so a lot of our funding comes through the NDIS for the participants. We run several programs. We have a farming program, what we call the Paddock. There's sort of 2 different clientele there that we respond to, but basically we use gardening as a vehicle, I suppose, and we grow on that 7 acres. We've got an apple orchard, we've got a 83 fruit tree orchard, we've got different veggie gardens, we've got big gardens, and we try and use, it used to be called life skills, but now it's capacity building, and it's trying, I mean, our end goal is really to get someone to come through our program and develop those skills to move on. Now, that doesn't always happen, and there's certain groups that's not going to happen. So, but that's where the hort therapy side of thing comes in, and that's more of a vehicle for those building those fine motor skills and things like that, and working with occupational therapists to deliver the goals of the kids. I've actually got, he's just gone for lunch now, but I've got, if we wanted to, Matt Buckingham, who's one of our participants out here. So Matt's been with us for a while. He said if you would like, he's happy to come on and have a chat.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to meet Matt when he comes in now. So one of the participants, that would be wonderful.
I mean, for those that haven't been here, I think for the last, we've been here, as I said, about 15 years, and you probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't, we wouldn't definitely not be where we're at if it wasn't for the help we've had along the way from Give Where You Live. Like they've been, I mean, from the very beginning of the farm, when we started, we had 5 participants, and it was more of it started with basically mainly males who were disengaged from being in a classroom, things like that, and the need was sort of there. So me and another guy, we just went out and we built some fences, we did a bit of gardening, and from that, the program sort of blossomed into now, I think last count, before the current situation, we had some days of up to 30 participants across the sort of the different programs. Now we've sort of limited just because of the social distancing and the floor space. But I mean, if I was to go through the timeline of sort of what Give Where You Live have done for us, initially we did some building upgrades, which was things like automatic doors, things like that, to sort of, because it was a house. So when we first got the building, it was a reasonably big house, but over the years, through some of the Give Where You Live funding, we've been able to upgrade it now to the point where if I was to tell you it was a house, we don't have one bedroom in the house. So the whole house has had a complete revamp. It's now a building that's completely accessible. We also got water tanks. So one of the things when we took on the property was to make it as sustainable as we could. And I mean, the word sustainable can get thrown around, but through the help of Give Where You Live, we've got a full water harvesting system. And probably about 11 years ago, we put in some hot houses, which just that, like when I say hot houses, that's almost turned our focus and our program to grow into what it has now. So now we grow a lot of seedlings for farmers through that hothouse system. We grow a lot of plants for ourselves. And one of the latest things that we did with Give Where You Live last year was we did nursery upgrades. So, and look, a lot of that, because of we can't have people on site now, has sort of gone a bit. It's still there, and we're still continuing to do that. And we're looking at other ways to get some of our plants out. But I suppose it's allowed us to just grow the programs. So the programs, without that help, I mean, I don't know where we'd be, because we had definitely, the help that we've been given through all that has almost, the little steps that we've done has allowed us to either plant more crops, make it bigger, involve more people in the programs, and make the programs a lot more far-reaching than what they were, and also allowed us to then reach out to different elements in the community, which probably one of the big things that we try and do is to reach out to some of those. I mean, when I first started, a lot of people would, they hadn't really come across a lot of people with disabilities, and there was always that thing, can they do this? Can they do that? Whereas before the current situation, we would invite the public in to pick veggies. So we had a system where we'd invite the public in, pick veggies, and we didn't have a set price. It would just sort of pay what you thought. And that was one, to hit people who couldn't afford veggies, or to sort of within that experience of being at a farm. But the other side of that was to actually introduce them to someone with this disability and let them see that they might have a disability, but there's plenty that people can do. So that's sort of the vehicle we look at the farm is a way where to try and, I suppose, not celebrate, that's probably not the right word, but to show people what people with disability can actually achieve. And I think that's sort of we base every decision on the farm is good for our participants, and then we work from that basis.
Absolutely. Chris, just on that, and we'll get to Anita in a second. When we're talking about people with disabilities, and I know it's one of the things that you've spoken about before, especially with people coming in to purchase produce, sometimes it's the first time someone has really interacted with someone with a disability. Yeah. And I think one of the things that Encompass tries to do is I guess just integrate everyone into the community and kind of open that up. So you did talk about some of the alterations that the foundation has paid for to help with accessibility at the farm. Yeah. Can you just tell us, when we're talking about your participants, what sort of disabilities might someone have who is working at the paddock?
Look, we range from right across the board. So we initially it was a lot of our guys. It does tend to mainly be guys, because I think it's that farming getting out there who tend to go into. But we range from people in wheelchairs right across. We sort of don't, and I think that's one thing about the paddock. We don't set a limit like where I think there's some we can cater for everyone. So we have a broad range of people that we meet in the and I think that's the main thing we try and do. So with the accessibility upgrades now that we've put in throughout the years, like now we've got last year with some of the funding we basically did a whole refit of the building, and that was to bring it up to that standard of I mean, we don't have hoists and things like that, but we've got free accessible toilets, we've got change facilities, so we can cater for pretty much anyone. So, and I think we have the programs that we run is the hort therapy, which again was a Give Where You Live, which is in the process now of developing that and implementing that. So we aim that program to some of the more higher needs people who may not be able to go out to the garden and do the things, but we can offer another garden where you can still get that experience of gardening. And as I said, we're linking, the aim will be with that, to link that with the occupational therapists. So we can get a tailored program that the staff can then run through the occupational therapist. Then we sort of, and it's to everyone in between, which is sort of hard. Then we get people on the other end of that who we might have for 2 years, and it may be just that they've had confidence, a bit of mental health issues, and they've never had an opportunity to get employment or to be in that situation where they're around the employment or things like that. So it's working through that. We did the Sprout project, which was again where you live, the pitch up event, where we had to pitch an idea. And that was based on people who've sort of fallen through the cracks. So it was people who have either been in mainstream schools, but either haven't been diagnosed with a disability. So there was a bit of a grey area there, which we thought the need wasn't there. And there's no funding available for them as well. So because they're depending on where they come, we're looking at sort of around the Whittington area, where I think there's a lot of people that have fallen through the cracks there, and either don't have the advocacy or the people who are there to just help them through that period. So we found there was a gap in there of people who hadn't had the opportunity to, with a supported environment, to go through those steps. So I think that was unfortunately that because of the current situation, we've had to cut that short. But so yeah, we have a huge range of people. We don't sort of limit to one. What we do is we look at the programs. So depending on the programs that we have, that's sort of the way we look at the need. So we will assess the need and then fit them into one of the programs. And look, if the people don't fit into them, we just make it. We make it sort of happen.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. I might just hand over to Anita. So Anita, would you like to please explain the program that you run out at the Ballerine Centre?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me, and it's lovely to be able to be a part of today. And just great to be alongside people like Chris and Helen, who are amazing too. So thank you for having me. So Ballerine Living and Learning Centre, I've been working there now for 2 years. And I was employed, specifically a grant was allocated to the centre to be able to employ myself as a food security project worker. So I specialise in assisting people to access food and to learn ways to use that food to improve their health and nutrition and opportunities in life, and to build a skill set around being able to utilise that food. So, so I started 2 years ago, and what originally was at the centre was, this is before my time, so I can only imagine what it looked like, but I've been told it was really just a few shelves in the centre where there was food placed on those shelves and people could come and go. There was no real interaction with staff at the centre. They were just handed a plastic bag as they walked in, and they just went and grabbed whatever they wanted and then left the centre without any real contact. So part of my role was to come in and to build, I guess, a food bank up that really worked with community and worked from a community development approach. So connecting with community, looking at their assets and working with that to find out what they needed around food. We knew that there were high rates of food insecurity in the region. We knew that there were, that the Whittington community were facing some serious barriers in accessing food. One of those is that it's a low socioeconomic area. There's a lot of public housing and a whole range of other issues that come as a result of that. We also noticed that there were high rates of people experiencing disadvantage because they actually had disabilities as well. And that was a real factor for us to start to think about, well, what can we utilise within the community and empower them to speak into what they wanted there. So I built up, so we started a food bank program running on a Wednesday, and that actually enabled people to come in and we actually served them. So we started accessing fresh, nutritious food, so fruit and vegetables from Second Bite, which is a food rescue organisation. We also accessed pantry items from Food Bank Victoria, and we started to introduce the idea of a mystery vegetable bag. So you get a selection of vegetables and a pantry bag, and that would last you a few days. And we would often start handing out recipes to be able to help people know how to use the vegetables that were in those bags. And then from there, we started to look at ways, food security isn't really, I mean, by the time you hit food aid or you're needing food assistance, that's really just the band-aid. What I wanted to start to do was tackle some of the underlying issues of why people were needing food assistance. So we started to develop a program called Food Connect, and this is where Give Where You Live was able to really support us in offering not just food aid, but tackling some of the underlying issues. So Food Connect program started almost 2 years ago, and is aimed at teaching people food skills. So how to cook, some simple nutritional education, but the main thing which has come out of it is that community development approach, where we've looked at that asset-based community development, looking at what assets the community has and building on that and allowing them to really develop and empower their skills. And so Food Connect has been a major instrument, I guess, for us to develop social connection. We now have 2 people within the group who have significant disabilities that would otherwise not be able to connect into other cooking programs. We have a wide range of people accessing Food Connect and learning skills around food, how to cook. We share recipes, so there's a time during Food Connect where people can say what they've cooked for the week and share a recipe with their other participants. So we've really been able to develop not just one aspect of food security, but we've been able to develop some underlying programs that actually deal with the issue. And, you know, down the track, we'd like to do more of that sort of stuff. But Give Where You Live has really enabled us to put the time and the energy into building those and developing those programs. And we've seen a remarkable improvement in that whole community connection. People coming in, and for example, one lady who's been accessing the centre now for Food Bank for probably about 12 months. When she first came in, she was really quiet and very timid, and she wouldn't take very much food. She would hand most of it back. And since COVID has actually happened, she's been coming in and she's been dropping off vegetable plants and things like that and saying, oh, do you need any rhubarb? And just things like that. This woman was so timid initially, but because we've been able to build the relationship up with her, she's now in a position where we're seeing her just come out of her shell.
That's fantastic. And I think one of the things that you've touched on, and just in case anyone doesn't actually kind of grasp the concept of food insecurity, what we really mean is that someone can't access, for a whole range of reasons, can't access nutritious, healthy, culturally appropriate food on a regular basis. So that's what we're sort of talking about. And one of the things that Anita's touched on with the community connections, which of course, as we've seen, especially at the moment, is so important to people. But a lot of the times our food programs that we support is actually about bringing community together. So, and as Anita said, food insecurity is usually another symptom of something else that's happening. And just to put that into a little bit of context, I won't go into Feed Geelong, but in normal times, the Geelong community sees about 2,000 meals a day are being given out, the equivalent of 2,000 meals a day. And we're estimating that has more than doubled during this COVID crisis, and people that have never accessed food are accessing food at the moment. So that's quite astonishing. Thanks, Anita. I'm going to hand over to Helen now. So Helen, you'll need to unmute. And if you could maybe give us a quick snapshot of what the SAF Centre does and the clients that you're supporting.
Yeah, sure, Sheridan. And sorry, everyone, my internet dropped out there for about 10 minutes. I was panicking and scrambling trying to get back on.
That's okay.
So my apologies. So I'm not sure if you've heard of the SAF Centre, the Sexual Assault and Family Violence Centre. I'll just give you a bit of an overview. So our organisation was formed in about 2018 as a result of a merger of Barwon Centre Against Sexual Assault, Barwon CASA at the time, and Minerva Community Services. So both organisations were established in Geelong in the late 1970s as feminist women's organisations. We'd had a long-standing partnership between the organisations and decided that it would create a much stronger and more viable organisation to address violence against women and children to come together and create a new entity. So the SAF Centre was born from that process. And as Sheridan said, she's on our board and has been for 4 or 5 years, I think now, Sheridan. Yeah. Yep. So we are governed by a board. We're an independent, not-for-profit entity. Many people think that we're part of Barwon Health, but we're not. We're a separate organisation. Our board currently has 8 members with a diverse background, of accounting, industrial relations, local government, lawyers, philanthropic. Yeah, it varies. We've got people that are of a younger profile and some that are of a, my age, older profile.
Lucky you
And
said
we
you,
do look
lovely.
at our I was going to say you, Sheridan, but we do a board diversity profile matrix every year and look at our recruitment based on areas that we don't have representation or a skill set. We're co-located in the Barwon Multidisciplinary Centre in Spring Street in Geelong West. The Barwon MDC brings together police, child protection and the SAF Centre. We're one of 7 MDCs in Victoria and all of them are a little bit unique and different. Our MDC, we have about 50 plainclothed detectives across both the sexual offences unit and the family violence investigation unit. We work with them from the point of first disclosure through to criminal prosecution if that's what the victim chooses. And we also have a dozen child protection staff that are in the sexual abuse investigation unit, so a highly specialised child protection unit that just investigates the serious child sexual abuse and serious physical abuse, so child deaths and cot deaths in our team. We have about 80 practitioners in our team in the building, so it's quite a large facility, and we support over 3,500 people per annum in the Geelong area with our services. The types of services that we provide are trauma-informed and therapeutic services. So we provide support to adults, young people and children, male, female, who have experienced sexual abuse. And a number of our older adults have experienced institutional sexual violence. So it might be through an orphanage or out-of-home care, foster care, sporting club or a church that they have experienced sexualised abuse. We then provide a lot of support to women and children through family violence therapeutic counselling. That might be when women are contemplating leaving a relationship, and we know that any relationship is hard to leave, but it's even harder when you have a lack of choice and a lack of resources. And many women say to us, I still love him, I just want the violence to end. So women can often contemplate leaving between 8 to 16 times before they will actually leave a relationship. And during that process, they often engage with our counsellors to help just inform and conceptualise that decision and what it will mean. And many choose not to leave through that process, and we support others to leave through our case management program. We're co-located in the Barwon Orange Door, and that's the state government's new intake and assessment platform for family violence. Came out of the Family Violence Royal Commission. That's located in Moorabool Street in Geelong, and we partner with Bethany Community Support, Colac Health, Watherong Aboriginal Cooperative and Family Safety Victoria to deliver that service. So we have 15 specialist women's practitioners co-located in there, and work with Bethany, who have the Child, Youth and Family Program and the Men's Intervention Service. And we form a multi-agency collaborative response to all L17 police referrals that come into the Orange Door. So we sit down, do a joint assessment. We have access to a range of state government databases through a central information point. We can request a report on the perpetrator's history, the victim and the children if necessary, and put together that report and have a multi-agency meeting about the response that's needed. We have in Geelong programs to work with adolescents who are using family violence against their parents, siblings, grandparents. That's in partnership with Barwon Child, Youth and Family. And we also have an adolescent sexually abusive behaviours treatment service. Most referrals are statutory or court-ordered referrals where a young person is displaying or using inappropriate or abusive sexualised behaviours towards other young people that verge on the criminal offence spectrum. So some of them come on a therapeutic treatment order through the courts where there has been an offence. We also provide primary prevention. So we've got a team of staff who work with a range of entities. So we've just finished a project in partnership with the City of Greater Geelong and BATForce called Breaking the Binary Code, and it looks at preventing family violence in communities of LGBTIQ identity, working with young people around intimate partner violence and family of origin violence relating to their sexuality. So that's been a great project, and we've just published a whole range of resources relating to that project. We work with large corporations such as Geelong Ports, City of Greater Geelong, TAC, WorkCover, WorkSafe, around their policies and procedures for responding to and preventing violence against women and children, and also in relation to looking at gender equality. So people often think that the causes of family violence are associated with alcohol or drug use or financial stress or relationship breakdown. It's actually not. They're contributing factors. So part of the myth busting is that a lot of people drink and get drunk, but they don't all assault their partner. Assaulting someone comes from a sense of entitlement and a long-held belief that that's appropriate behaviour. We know that in countries where there's greater gender inequality, there's less violence against women and children. In Australia, 1 woman a week is killed at the hands of her intimate partner, and we're now on the statistics that 1 child a week is killed by their parent, be either a male or a female parent. So pretty damning statistics in Australia. It's also family violence is the leading cause of permanent death, disability and illness in women aged 15 to 44 in Victoria. So most of us would know women in that age group. Sorry, Sheridan.
I was going to say, so some pretty complex things that the centre are working with, and a lot of diverse programs. Can you just put a little bit of the COVID slant on it, Helen? And so I'm not sure if everyone sort of heard some of those, you probably heard some of those stats that Helen just sort of mentioned. With the COVID context, what's kind of been happening in our region?
Yeah. So I've sent through a handout to you too, Sheridan, if you want to pass that on to participants. But what we've seen is we've asked our practitioners to just get consent to start recording the themes and trends that they're seeing that clients are reporting. And in the media, you will hear a lot about that there's been a huge increase in family violence. And in Geelong, we haven't necessarily seen an increase. The police reports are running about the same. But what we have seen is an increase in the complexity, and those who are already experiencing family violence, it's occurring more frequently and of greater concern. So we're seeing women and children that have been virtually held hostage in their home, threatened if they try to leave, have their phones taken off them. The frequency of violence and the type and nature of violence has escalated. There's been issues such as threats to infect, that perpetrators have said that they're using the pandemic as a form of abuse and control. Social isolation, so not able to contact family and friends and have that support. Obviously, there's been a lot of financial and employment stress for all families, and that has added the increased pressure that is a contributor. And then we've got the mental health impact of you know, it's kind of like we say living with stepping on eggshells when you live in a violent relationship. But with COVID-19, we found that that's a constant state, that the trauma of family violence and the fear of the next incident is just constant, and women are trying to mitigate that and, you know, find ways so that that doesn't occur. So they're reporting, you know, declining mental health, increased stress, increased fear, and impact on the children and parenting. Also having children at home during COVID-19 and homeschooling has created a lot more tension as well, where women are feeling responsible to keep children entertained and quiet, and it's very difficult as well when they've got a job to do and you know, keep that employment functioning as best as possible. So we've found that we've needed a lot of grounding and self-regulation strategies and increased safety planning.
Thanks, Helen. And just quickly, before we might move back to Chris, can you just explain to the team how the foundation has helped the centre over, actually, I think we've just lost Helen. We've just lost her.
I'm here.
Right. Oh, no, you're there.
Yep.
Sorry. I thought you might have dropped
Yep,
out.
I'm here.
My screen just moved all
Yep.
around. Could you just explain to the team maybe the current program that the foundation is funding?
Yep, sure. So with us needing to mobilise our staff fairly quickly, so 120 staff in March, we had to shift out of the offices and into working from home. And we had a very aged IT system and very few laptops and facilities available. So we applied to the foundation for $30,000 to help build our infrastructure. And with that, we've been able to look at employing an IT manager. We currently have a consultancy arrangement that we've contracted because we were unable to recruit in that first round, but they've helped guide us to purchase IT laptops, Wi-Fi dongles, connect up internet, provide mobile phones. There's been a whole range of things that we've been able to do. We've purchased Health Direct, and we've got platforms now, video link platforms, that we're delivering VC counselling and client sessions. And we've also just recently put a web chat function on our internet. So most of that is supported by the foundation through giving us the ability to get an IT manager to support us. We've grown 300% in the last 3 years and didn't have the kind of back of house infrastructure around IT to support our growth and development into the future. So thanks to the foundation, it's been incredible, and we've had a long-standing relationship with the organisation, providing support to people in Geelong that we work with.
Thanks, Helen. So I think that kind of goes to a bit of what we were talking about with Bill the other day, about that some of the programs that we fund, you know, they're not the front page kind of sexy programs that people want to read about. Sometimes it's really about putting funds into these vital programs. And I think everyone who's here today, the 3 programs that we've got going here, that the foundation has been able to put money into the behind the scenes work just to ensure that these programs can keep running and kind of keep the lights on, which a lot of funders don't do. Thanks, Helen. Chris, I might just pop back to you. So I'm just conscious of the time. I was just wondering, and I've already forgotten the participant's name that you were.
Matt.
Matt?
Yeah.
Is Matt available by any chance?
Yeah.
Yep, we'd love to meet Matt. It's always great to kind of put a face to the program. So if Matt wants to join you, if he's able. Yeah.
So Matt, just a short, I'll give you a brief on like Matt has oh, here he is. He can talk about himself. Here he comes. I'll just jump out.
Thank you. Hi, Matt.
How are you?
How are you?
Good, thanks.
Thanks for joining us.
No worries.
Hey, Matt, tell us about what you do at the paddock. What's your job?
When it's the season, I'm their primary seed planter or sower. Yeah, so
Excellent. So you're keeping all the, making sure that the plants are planted and all the seeds are propagated. That's fantastic.
and we're doing a bit of renovating out in the garage at the moment. So
Well, fantastic. It's an awesome job. Tell me, Matt, how does coming into the farm each day make you feel?
it gives me what's the word? Like a schedule to stick on, and with my disability, that's really good for me to be able to do that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's good. It's also good for the social side for me because I get to see everyone and work on my social skills when I come in. So.
Excellent. Yeah. So there's a great team of you guys out there. I know I've been out and got involved with you guys a bit, and there is a real social connection, which is awesome. Thank you. It's really good to meet you. So you're working hard today?
Yep. Just had lunch, but yeah, working really hard today.
Excellent. What's after lunch? What's the next job?
Back to the renovating.
Back out renovating the farm. Excellent. Thanks, Matt. We really appreciate meeting you.
No worries.
Thank
See
you.
you guys.
Same, mate.
Thanks, guys. Anita, I might just pass over to you. One of the things that I really love about your program as well, and that we talked about connecting people through food. I'm wondering whether you're able to maybe put a bit of a face to someone that might be accessing the centre, and maybe if you've got a story or something that you might be able to tell us apart from the lady you just mentioned.
Yeah, sure. Well, Give Where You Live obviously helps us run the food bank, but also the Food Connect program. And we have some regulars who come through Food Bank who now, as a result of that, have got involved with the Food Connect program. And they're an elderly couple who have been avid community people for their whole lives, but now find themselves in a position where they just can't do much anymore. But the centre really is their life, and coming into Food Bank and coming into Food Connect is their opportunity to connect with local people, but also share some of their knowledge around food and things that they've done in their kitchen, and then be able to bring that to the group in the Food Connect environment. So, that we have tea and coffee set up during Food Bank so that people can actually chat and while they're waiting for a food parcel, actually be able to connect. And this elderly couple are kind of our unofficial community welcomers, I guess. So they've become they're now volunteers at the centre as well. So it's a lovely way to have them involved. And they were just people that were coming along to Food Bank, getting a food parcel, to now being a little bit more involved in the centre and actually contributing and giving back to their community. And that's what we want to offer, is that opportunity for empowerment and for them to be able to fulfil some things that they're gifted in within the food environment. So they come along and they've helped us out with doing some cooking for the City of Greater Geelong Youth Group. So we now, as part of our Food Connect program, we cook for the youth group that come into the centre, and they love being able to do that. We've now been able to connect with Whittington Primary School as well, and we do cooking programs with them. And this elderly couple that volunteer at the centre, their children go to that primary school. So for them to see their kids coming in, to be able to cook with them and to be able to contribute in lots of different ways has made a very real difference in their life, and they feel like they're giving something back. And I think a lot of the people that come through don't just want to hand out, they want to be able to give back. That's very rewarding for them.
Yeah. I'm wondering whether you might be able to just give the group a little bit of an insight. You mentioned before about the barriers to obtaining food and the food insecurity that exists. So there's a few, I guess, postcodes in our region that we kind of refer to as a fresh food desert. That it's quite hard to access food. So obviously Anita's dealing with the 3219 postcode. We also have a real issue in the 3214, 3215 postcodes of people actually being able to access fresh food, and we support a lot of programs through Feed Geelong that assist with those. Anita, are you able, and obviously without making any assumptions of people and place-based problems, but are you able to maybe explain to us a little bit about why some of those barriers to accessing food might exist?
Yeah, look, I mean, we're in a little hub in Whittington, right behind the primary school. So we're in a housing commission area. And for those of you who know that area, there's a lot of fast food outlets just about on every corner there. And a lot of that food is just really cheap. It's not very nutritional. And a lot of the people that we are working with, they have a lot of stresses in their life. And for them to actually have to think about putting a meal together for their family goes a long way down the line. They've got a lot of other pressures in their life that are at the forefront of their sight. So for them to be able to put together a meal, they may not even have the equipment to be able to do that. You know, we take it for granted that everyone would have a saucepan and a working stove. A lot of our clients don't. I know a lot of elderly people I live with just don't have the resources or the ability to get down to the supermarket, get what they need, be able to get it home, and then follow a recipe or put something together. And we're dealing with a lot of families that have some fairly extensive issues going on. So what we are wanting to do is try and make it easy for people to access good food, healthy food. We want to make it as easy as possible so that we're supporting them in making good, healthy choices in their food. So a lot of the work I'm doing is around behaviour change and starting to introduce people to the idea of good food doesn't have to be hard. We're trying to give them easy options. And we've seen that just increase very significantly over the last 2 years that I've been there. It's really starting to be embedded, and we're working with the primary school specifically. They've got a Stephanie Alexander garden. So we're doing a lot of programs with them together in conjunction with the children and their families, and trying to engage people in not only into preparing meals that are quick and easy, but even starting to think about growing their own food or accessing places like the paddock where they could go and get some fresh produce within their neighbourhood, instead of just going and getting a quick, cheeseburger from Macca's down the road. It's starting to look at some of those underlying issues of it's too hard to look after, to prepare a meal, to, I can do that. I have the skills. I know how to do it, and I can access the food. So they're the things we're wanting to work on.
And a lot of the the underlying issues that we find with food security, we find a lot of families, so they might be underemployed, there might be some, issues, rental stress, bill shock going on, and quite often
single parents.
And a parent, we find, will often forego their meal to ensure that their children eat. And as a parent, I find that frightening that there are families in our region, living with us who are making those decisions each night and not being able to obtain food. We have estimated, and some of it is also quite hidden, but we've estimated there's about 80 different organisations across our region supplying food in some way, shape or form. That might be some of the bigger organisations like Geelong Food Relief Centre or Christchurch Community Meals Program. Some of them kind of drop down to smaller organisations like Anita's, church pantries, that sort of thing. But, there's an enormous food relief sector going on in our region.
And I think that's probably our strength too, because this region, we do have some really good food aid organisations, and we've been able to pull together during this COVID crisis, I guess, and really, because I know for us, our operations have been fairly limited. So we've been able to partner with other organisations and work together to be able to provide food assistance, which I think has been a real strength in our region.
Absolutely. So just to kind of give everyone a bit of that COVID overlay. So before COVID hit, the Geelong Food Relief sort of system really relied on deliveries every morning from Coles, Woolworths and Aldi. And that kind of came through Geelong Food Relief Centre, and then Geelong Food Relief Centre can distribute that around our region, and through Second Bite, who Anita mentioned before. We also get deliveries from Victoria Food Bank that come down to Geelong. That kind of week, remember when we ran out of toilet paper and the shelves were bare in all of those supermarkets? So you can just imagine what happened to the food relief system. So it pretty much dried up overnight. We had an enormous panic. So although, the people who were hoarding the pasta and toilet paper probably already had pasta and toilet paper in their homes. The people who were very badly affected were those that who Anita's organisation is dealing with, who didn't have anything in their pantry to start with. So we had a major problem, and for some of our food organisations, it was just all too hard, and they had no idea what to do. So one of the things that the foundation kind of also stepped in is just that little bit of management support as well, and just kind of talking with people and going, okay, what do we need to do? What do we need to do to keep this food flowing? And for the first time, we really had to buy food, which we have tried to avoid before, just relying on donations, but we actually had to put together some emergency grants and just start buying some food. So, Helen, just before we open to any questions, and I know it's very, very difficult in your situation, and all the complexities, and obviously the and then I can't even say that word, that we need. I'm not even going to try. This is when Bill would usually step in and hang it on me for not being able to say a word. Protecting people's privacy. Is there an example of maybe someone that you're able to share a story with us, or something about someone who the centre has been able to assist?
Absolutely, Sheridan. So if I think recently, a woman that we had, she came to Australia in an arranged marriage, and she didn't have Australian residency. In the first couple of months of being in Melbourne in that relationship, she experienced severe abuse. She actually had a child that she had brought with her, and the child was 2 years of age. And she decided that she needed to leave that relationship and was referred through our Safe Steps High Secure Refuge program. So we offer a high secure refuge in the Bowen region. She came and stayed with us, and she actually stayed with us for a period of 12 months until she could gain Australian residency and get some income. During that period, we got to know her and the child really, really well. She was keen to do some artwork, so we helped her to join a local group, and she learnt how to paint and express her feelings of not only trauma but also grief and relief and healing. She joined our women's group, our adult women's group, and made a number of friends through that. And we got the little one into a pediatric assessment. There's a word I can't say, Sheridan. And helped them with speech therapy, some mobility, and got them some aids as well. We have some funding that we're able to provide flexible support packages to clients. And during that time, food support was critical for her because she didn't have any money either. So we were able to link her in with appropriate services and support her and her child. She ended up getting a part-time job, which was fantastic once she got her residency, and she was able to move back to Melbourne into a community of her own culture. And still keeps in contact. She did a number of paintings for staff, and we still have those on our walls. But that's kind of a typical person who might come through to our Women's Refuge program.
Excellent, thank you. So just conscious of the time, it's nearly 1 o'clock. I'd like to just open it up to any of our crew. Does anyone have any comments or any questions that they'd like to put to Chris, Anita or Helen? Amy?
I just want to ask a question to Helen. I work in family law, so I'm just interested in your take on the COVID situation and kind of the statistics that are coming out of that. Just interested if you could clarify a bit more in terms of you're saying that the statistics seem to be about the same at this stage, but more incidences. Is that reports of family violence within families that are already known to have experienced family violence, or?
Yeah, good question, Amy. So what we're seeing, and it can differ in other organisations, but even through the Orange Door, where we get all the L17 police reports, they've remained fairly consistent. In the first stage of lockdown, we went really quiet, and it was like waiting for a tsunami, that we were kind of like, well, where is this huge increase going to occur? And that's been put down to just women not being able to make contact during that first stage. Soon after that, we did start to receive an increase, and it's plateaued out again. So for us, the kind of increase has gone in waves, but we're not looking at supporting any more women than we did this time last year, but the complexity is far greater. So the work for our staff has been much deeper and much more traumatic and emotional. In relation to the courts, we've had a number of cases that have been adjourned. We've also had offenders released from prison early, and we obviously develop safety plans with women and children around that anticipated release, and at times we haven't been able to, and that's placed women and children at greater risk. What we're expecting is, after the current stage 3 restrictions and stage 4 for our Melbourne staff, is that we will see another increase come through, a huge surge. There's still a lot of confusion that people are thinking that because of the restrictions they can't leave home due to family violence, but you can. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Thank you. Thanks. Has anyone else got anything they'd like to ask or comment on? No, that's okay. If you think of anything, feel free to pop any questions through, and I'm sure our panel will be happy to answer anything.